trust takes a long time to build, a very long time, years, sometimes decades. The short-term stand-in, though, as humans, we've developed like this mechanism for building trust quickly, or at least using it as like a proxy for trust, and it's relatability, right? Like it or not, the more somebody looks and sounds like you kind of give them a little bit more trust, at least in the short term.
Good morning. Welcome to another Real Estate First Friday. My name is Matthew Hodge, Executive Vice President here at LPT Realty. I'm joined by Luis Fermin, my co-EVP. Luis, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Kids are back in school.
Yeah, man.
It feels like it was just yesterday that we welcomed them home for summer break.
Yep.
You know, I woke up this morning, I looked at my pantry and I'm like, why are there so much extra snacks in the pantry? Like they haven't been crushing it all week.
No,
so.
I think that's a you thing.
That's a me thing? Yeah. I've been hitting back the gym and going back running, so maybe it's a me thing. Okay, I'll take the responsibility.
I'm blaming it on the kids. It was you, Slumber Snacky Bear.
Yeah.
Well, good, man. It's definitely it's been a week for sure. Getting back into the rhythm of things, and even client patterns are changing as well too. Everyone has that more autonomy during the summer months, and things are a little more lax. And now everyone's back into that, like, hey, I got to get out the house at a certain time, or I got to get kids up and running at a certain time. So sometimes it's nice to have that structure in your day to kind of help push you along. But yeah, so it's been good. It's been a great summer, really busy for us in particular, a lot of travel. So excited to be here, grounded for the next couple of weeks. But business, as we always talk about and we always look at, as we look at the numbers across the summer months for real estate, while not as robust as what we've seen in previous years, there's actually quite a few bright spots that are starting to shine back up, that there's businesses starting to happen again, which is nice. And when we look at last year's numbers, even though we're technically kind of pacing for the same annual sales, it seems like summer was a busier curve than it was like last year. It just kind of felt like flat, like summer almost didn't exist. This year, we did see a meaningful uptick in the amount of transactions that are being done, some more than others in certain markets, but either way, it was still a nice uptick in comparison. Happy for our agents who had the opportunity to capitalize on additional traffic.
For sure. I mean, we're definitely in the time of the year now where we want to double down on those activities that tend to work. During the summer months, it's very known that we are more slinging at the hips, right? Wild West. Kids are out of school. We don't really follow a very good schedule oftentimes. And when kids get back to school, processes start back. Like we get this shot of dopamine as consumers to like go re-explore some of these things that take up some of our time. So this is that period of time, where, leading up to the winter months, which things naturally slow down. And obviously in some markets, because of the seasonality of snow and so forth, things really shut down. Like we are in that time period now where we need to double down on the efforts and really capitalize on this movement, especially with some of those stats that you just shared coming off of those summer months.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so we are going to bring on a special guest today. We're going to talk specifically today about converting online leads. And I like this conversation because there's so many different ways to do it. And so we're going to hear from Isacc Guzman, who is going to walk us through how they're being successful at converting their online leads. Last time that we had him on, he talked about, kind of like a debit and credit system. Like, hey, here's how to get more credits from someone, meaning that I'm not just going to ask them like, hey, what's your price range? Are you pre-approved? We're just going to pull from them. We're giving them things of value, something that they can, say, hey, I'm indebted to this person for the information given, and then they start to extract. And so that combination has worked well. So today we're going to hear how they're converting successfully online leads. So if we could bring in Isacc. Hey, Isacc, good morning, man. How are you?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. What's going on, brothers?
Nothing much, man. Good to see you again. Thank you for making the time to be back with us again. I know today's topic is converting online leads, but for those who are just joining or have not, who weren't on your last episode, can you give us a quick rundown of, who you are, what you do, how long you've been in the business, and we'll jump in.
Yeah, I've been in the business probably going on 14, 15 years now. Started in the investment side of things. Then got into leadership at some big brands, ran some really big teams at other brands, and then came over, saw the LPT model, couldn't help myself, couldn't unsee what I saw. And now I'm currently the national team leader for Big Block Select. And we're a leads-based team. We're expanding all through Southern California. And yeah, we focus on just helping agents really succeed at the highest level. But a lot of what we do is converting online leads.
So let's definitely jump into some of these strategies on what are some effective ways to convert these online leads, because inherently online leads do pose a specific challenge that isn't necessarily in existence when we're handling SOI business. And it sounds pretty obvious, right? Like an SOI lead, they know us, we've already built that connection. Online leads, they do not know us. We have to build that connection. As simple as that sounds, oftentimes as agents, when we're interacting with that consumer, like we forget that link and we are not having the appropriate conversations in which we are positioning ourselves as that expert to win that business. And depending on when the lead came, we are given different timetables to be able to effectively take that approach. You know, if we are going to, for example, like a live verified, a live transfer type of online lead where there's a consumer ready to go, ready for you to go to a listing presentation, it sounds great in theory, right? Like this is an opportunity that's going to consolidate my time from putting in the work and having to nurture to the time that they ultimately want to list their property. But what is the challenge there is that we are given a one-shot window to convert that business, because more often than not, that consumer likely has an appointment lined up before you, before that person, after you. Like we don't have a big window to go in there and like sell ourselves. And if we keep the conversation strictly anchored on their asset and selling their assets, the usual stuff, the CMAs and the market analysis, that's what everybody else is doing.
That's right.
And we are not distinguishing ourselves and creating a unique position for ourselves in light of those circumstances. So I'm excited to jump in here today with you, Isaac, to kind of hear what are some of the strategies that have worked for you guys to really position yourselves in an appropriate way when there is that consolidation of time that we have to ultimately sell our business to them or our
Yeah,
services.
100. You're spot on. I think, and as much as like sometimes we might not like this, we always got to start with mindset, right? A lot of us we feel like we have a good mindset, but it really is a different mindset in converting online leads. One of the big things to think about is how many searches there are nationwide annually versus how many sales there are, right? Because a lot of our online leads start, the initiation is a search of some type that got started. I'm looking for a home valuation. I want to go see this home. Rough numbers, about 2 billion a year, but we have 4.5 million sales. That's a very lopsided thing. So we need to understand before we ever pick up a lead, before we even put our credit card down with that lead source, before we join the team with the leads, whatever, we have to understand that that ratio means by definition, you're going to go through a lot of people who say, just looking, I'm just getting started. They're early up. No, I didn't fill out that form. You're going to hear a lot of that. So that's the first thing we really focus on is I understand that people are in different places, right, in their journey. And some of them are in a place where it's completely unreasonable that they become a real estate lead in my pipeline. But hey, that's that's what happens, right? The other thing that we really focus on too in terms of mindset is the earlier up I meet you and you're in the funnel, right? The further away from actually transacting you are, the longer obviously it's going to take, but also the closer we get to transacting. If I meet you really close to transacting, to your point, Lewis, that's the skill set time. Like, in other words, if I meet you 2 years before you're buying a house, chances are I could build rapport and there's not a lot of pressure, and my skill set doesn't have to be like dialed in, right? I can just build that relationship as evidenced by anybody in your sphere. But you go to somebody's house who says, I'm interviewing 4 agents and I'm listing next Tuesday, no matter what, your skill set has to be extremely high. And so understanding that as well is like, oh, I just want to get put in front of people. You can ask any real estate agent who's interested in getting and selling more houses. Whenever I interview agents for the team, I go, so what do you think you need? And they go, just put me in front of more people. I'll close the deal. You just get me in their house, get me at a showing, and it's a wrap, right? Like I get that, but like you really got to show up that way for those. So, anyways, that's the first thing is understanding the mindset. The next thing is obviously speed to lead. We're big on that because if you can catch somebody in that very narrow window where they're still thinking about what they just submitted on, right? They're still looking at the house right there on the screen. If you can get them while they're like, oh my goodness, that was fast. Like we have one of my agents right now is a really big buyer, like a multi-million dollar buyer, even for our market, it's very, very luxury, high end. And the guy was just impressed that she called while he was still looking at the house online. So speed to lead is incredibly important, right? And I think we all know that. The thing that we really focus on, though, is, to your point, Lewis, is making that deposit. That's where that ALA and also Matt, making that ALM script part of what you do. ALM being appointment, location, motivation. And the reason why is understanding the consumer behavior is massive. We spend a lot of time talking about, thinking through, and even experimenting to get a better understanding of consumer behavior, right? Because as soon as you understand consumer behavior better, you understand how to position yourself in a given conversation, in a given situation. Because, like, we like to think that real estate is done logically and it's very thought through, from their end as to when they submit their information and inquire about the home value. Sometimes it's not. And we have to understand kind of what their experience is and what they're going through, and also spend time discovering. So, like, I'll give you a super quick example. It's super weird to be a consumer in the Zillow Flex world or Zillow Preferred now, right? So here's what I mean. Like, for us, it sounds great. I scroll, I click. Like, I'm on my lunch break at work. I'm scrolling, I click a couple times on my phone, and then I'm like talking to some person, and then they transfer me to another person, and then before you know it, I'm meeting a complete stranger at an empty house tonight at 6:30. Dude, that's weird. And this person's asking me to sign documents and doing all this stuff. And so until you recognize that that's a little awkward, you don't really know what the value of doing these other things are. Things like using video. And I can break all that down, how and why we use video to help us convert leads. And it's because, like, you are a stranger inside of a very weird process. Now, we like that. And maybe there, to a certain extent, there's, dating apps, you do stuff like this, right? Where, you scroll, you swipe, or whatever it is. I don't know. My marriage predates dating apps, but um, you scroll, you swipe, and then before you know it, you're meeting somebody, right? Like, there's that. I get that. But usually you're meeting them in like a public spot, not an empty house, right? So just kind of understanding that and getting through it is really important. Um, One of the biggest things we do, we just talked about this as a team yesterday, is using video. As soon as you finish talking with somebody, send them a video, whether you book the appointment or not. It's incredibly important if you book the appointment, but whether you book the appointment or not, using a video and not having it be a pre-shot, beautifully lit, perfect audio video, because that's not relatable. Is Here's the thing: in online lead conversion, what's really important, and actually, let me say it this way: in converting a person to a client, trust is incredibly important. Consumers say they want an agent that they can trust. They're looking for trust. Okay. Um, Trust takes a long time to build, a very long time, years, sometimes decades. The short term stand in, though, as humans, we've developed like this mechanism for building trust quickly, or at least using it as like a proxy for trust, and it's relatability, right? Like it or not, the more somebody looks and sounds like you kind of give them a little bit more trust, at least in the short term, right? If it's 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm at the gas station on my way back from a road trip, and somebody pulls up next to me and they're driving a truck and wearing a hat and have two boys asleep in the back, and there's I don't know, camping gear in the back of the truck or something, and that guy pops out the truck and goes, "Hey, excuse me," chances are I'm going to be like, "What's up?" Because I'm probably coming back from a very similar situation. I'm in my truck with my two boys in the back, right? And hate it, love it or not, or like it or not, that's just the reality. Because if someone steps out that has like a different vibe than I do, maybe they're driving something different or whatever it is, like, the truth is I'm going to be at least a little bit more hesitant, right? And that might be not be the most politically correct thing to say, but it's just true. Because of that, that's why video works, and why we send it quickly. Someone, I think, asked, do we email it or whatever? We text it, and I don't care if your noise is bad, if you're backlit, if your dog's barking in the background. That actually makes you relatable. And again, relatability is the short-term stand-in for trust. So when you send a video that's relatable, not me walking down the boulevard with my hair blowing in the wind, perfectly lit, and a microphone, and obviously a cameraman's there, that's not relatable, right? But me having just jumped off the Peloton, this is a true story. One of our agents, like, this is when we kind of realized that it doesn't matter as long as you're relatable. Dripping sweat, just jumped off the Peloton, boom, and you deliver that quick video. Hey, Matt, it's Isaac. We just got off the phone. I just wanted to put a face to the name. Really looking forward to meeting you at the property today at 4:30. I'm going to share with you a couple things that you might not be able to find online. But in either case, super excited. Make it a great day. Boom. You send that out. It's not perfect, nothing like that. What happens is, and you send that out within 2 minutes, you're sending signals. You're sending, one, I am a relatable person. And again, short-term stand-in for trust is relatability. And two, I'm an effective communicator, because when people say their number one thing they're looking for in an agent is trustworthiness, the number one complaint they have is poor communication. So when I deliver that video within 2 minutes of getting off the phone with you, I'm effectively telling you I'm a relatable person. I'm real. So you're less likely to ghost me, right? And two, I'm an effective communicator. Look how quickly I delivered this video to you. We text it. If this is the first text that's going out to them, the first thing I'm going to do is text them words, not a video. I'm going to text them, hey, Luis, great speaking with you. Isaac, send that. Wait 20 seconds, shoot the video, then send it. If the first thing you send is a video, you're getting blocked either by the carrier or the person, right? Like, don't send links first. The other really important thing about when you send that is don't rewatch your video. Unless you like drop the F-bomb in there, just send it. Otherwise, you're never going to send it. You're going to take too long. It should be a 14-second thing. And so I know it's easy to just say send a video after, but without understanding what we're actually doing by doing that, how we're being effective as communicators and people building trust through relatability, it's something that's easy to skip. I'll pause there just because like that's a big part of what we do.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love this talking point because like we can look at it like from a real life example, right? Like if we are out networking or in some social event, oftentimes it's the easiest way for us to communicate with people that we don't know. But if we're walking into an environment in which people are with suit and ties, very polished, very prepared, there's more nerves around that process. And that's the equivalent of what you are just describing. Being able to just send that video text message, to show that relatability to the consumer right off the cuff of hopping off the Peloton, that's essentially the equivalent of just walking up to somebody at a networking event that you're creating this very casual, just type of conversation that ends up sparking a lot of other type of dialogues between the two parties versus, oh my God, I got to prepare an outline. I got to do this script. Now I got the nerves. Now I'm going to go communicate with this person. Like that is essentially what we are doing. Right. And to your point, Isaac, relatability is key. People are going to interact with the agents that they feel most comfortable with. And as you mentioned, agents that they ultimately trust. And those are some of the techniques that we can use to get in front of our consumers in a way that's very trustworthy in nature.
That I agree with. And, one thing I think that was a powerful nugget for me is that relatability is the short-term step in for trust, which is true. Yeah. Like, you're like, oh, I just kind of like that guy. We kind of vibe. Like, you don't really know whether you trust him or not or yet, but you haven't really asked that question because you feel like you can relate. And I think that is part of some sales psychology that people don't really talk about. We always just kind of sum it up in that by saying, hey, you are the first sale, right? Them saying yes to you or yes, I'm going to allow you to help me with whatever need I have is the first sale. And there's multiple ways that we can have that being done by, like you're talking about, quick and effective communication, asking the right questions so that you have a bigger, clear picture of what they're ultimately trying to accomplish, and then demonstrating your ability to be able to do it on their behalf. Like all those things when you are that's your objective for really meeting them the first time. Some people think, hey, the first time that I meet them, it's to really help them buy this particular house they inquired about. Like, no, it's not. It's about this thing. And so when you mix in this like concept of like, hey, I need to be relatable. I need to display these three things on our first meeting so that I can then have the opportunity to work with them for the second time. That process itself is going to naturally start to build the relationship. It's going to build the trust. And then of course you have to, do the things that you say you're going to do and all the things, but that is the step-by-step process to making a conversion with someone. A lot of the times those those steps are skipped, and then it feels very cold, or it feels very rigid, or it feels unnatural, and you feel like a salesperson because you haven't taken the time to really build that relationship, to understand their needs, or build some common ground that allows you to have a more effective communication.
Yeah. So like in psychology, right? Like us as humans, we are more than likely to approach a stranger if we perceive them as being somebody that we will like, versus approaching a stranger just because they're smart. Usually that person who's hyper intelligent, knows what they're talking about, we can form a level of intimidation. Like we won't want to approach them. And as agents, we want as many people to come and approach us as possible. So if you can cross that bridge of being likable, through those actions, then you're going to increase your odds that people will approach you. To your point, it's like, man, I really like this guy. Let me go approach him. And then, and they know what they're talking about, right? Like now you've won the battle, right? Versus, man, they're really smart, but I don't know if I want to go talk to. I don't know if I'm going to like them. They sound a little bit intimidating. They're too polished. The wind is blowing in the air with a microphone on their cuff. Like it's too polished. So you can deter certain people for sure.
I'd like you to make a video with your wind.
Blow my hair in the wind.
Yeah. That'd be so good. But yeah, so okay. So with that being said, Isaac, I kind of want to circle back to you. So you've got this concept here of like, okay, I'm going to, understand that these are the pieces that make that first interaction, which is the debit credit system, meaning that you are providing enough information that you can ask questions and then just feel like you're pulling from them. You are two, creating things that allow you to be relatable while you are warming up the process and ensuring that, that you guys are going to be making the call. You send a video that makes you more relatable. How do you then, once you've done all that, let's say you get to the first showing, 9 times out of 10, we know statistically the very first house that they see is not going to be the one that they purchase, right? Like we can just say that's what's going to happen. If it does happen, consider that an anomaly, but that's the likely scenario that we're going to be. So what do you do to bridge from that point to the next step of saying, hey, we're going to work together? Do you set an appointment? Like what does that next step look like?
Yeah. So really good question. So first of all, always try to book more than one showing in an outing, right? Try to get multiple properties, because then you get multiple chances at what we're about to talk about. So your increased likelihood of converting it, like look for the easy, lazy wins. I'm an easy, lazy win guy. Doesn't mean I'm not going to work hard, right? But if I can get the easy, lazy win, I'm going to increase my likelihood simply by showing them more than one home. So never make it about just that home. On the first phone call, make sure you set the expectation. Hey, there's a couple other properties I have in mind. If they fit what it looks like, we'll go ahead and check those out. So do me a favor, instead of just this 30-minute window, let's set aside an extra 45 minutes or so, because I have another property nearby. Do I have it when I'm on the phone? No. They're going to be fine if I call them back and go, hey, you know what, that property, turns out I didn't have that thing that you mentioned you really like, right? Because I obviously discovered that a little bit when learning about the location and motivation. Turns out they don't have a full bath downstairs. So we're just going to go ahead and scratch that from the showing. We'll just do this one. But set the expectation you're going to get 2. If you can get 2, maybe even 3, amazing, you're doing way better. So what we do is, in an ideal world, right, you're going to have some version of a consultation before you do the showing. Meet them at a coffee shop for 30 minutes. And you just say it matter of factly, right? We don't ask for permission. We don't do what I call green eggs and ham sale. Remember green eggs and ham? Would you, could you in a box? Would you, could you with a fox in a house with a mouse? All that fun stuff, right? Like that's not what we do. We go, hey, listen, here's what we're going to do. The showing's at 5:00. What we do is we'll meet up about 30 minutes earlier. There's a Starbucks right down the road, and we'll go ahead. We'll sit there. We'll talk a little bit about the house. I'll let you know a little bit about me, figure out what the game plan is going to be, and then go do the showing. Now I'm going to give you a presentation so that I can win you over as my client and sign some contracts that's going to be binding to me for the next 90 days, right? Because that's the California version of it. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying this is what we do. There's 3 levels of what we call perceived competence, confidence, and commitment. I won't go through all that. We don't have all the time. But the point is, the lowest version of that is I can. When someone says I can, you kind of like, okay, that sounds good. Like, hey, yeah, I can get you leads. I'll figure it out. Second highest level is I will. Like, hey, at least you sound committed. The highest level of perceived competence, confidence, and commitment is here's what happens. When you come from a here's what happens approach, people tend to go along with it. Now, that's not all the time. That's still going to be the minority of people that meet you beforehand. The next best option is right after a showing. And the third is what we call the driveway consultation. And to Lewis's very, very good point at the beginning of the call is at that point, it is not about their search criteria. We take this crazy approach where we just start asking them search criteria questions and then assume that that's a consultation. The point of a consultation, that's involved in a consultation, but the point of a consultation is differentiation and commitment. And I'm going to show you why I'm different and why my process is different, right? We do a process-oriented consultation where we show them why working with us is different, right? Because of our process, not because I'm better. As soon as we get into I'm better than other agents, there's always somebody, right? Like I learned this in sports. There's always somebody bigger, faster, stronger. There's always somebody that looks better. There's always somebody who drives a nicer car. There's always somebody that's more likable. There's always somebody who's willing to spend more money on marketing that listing than you are, right? So that's what we call personality-based conversion versus process-based, right? My process delivers better results. They are better. They do have a better smile. They are more flashy. They are a nicer person to you at least. And you really do have a better relationship with them. And they have sold more houses in this area over the last 30 years, but their process is broken. And so that's where we really start to maximize conversion, is understanding that when you present a process to somebody that's different and shows that it can deliver a different result than the pain points that are normal out there, right? With the average buyer's agent or the average listing agent, that's when it gets really good. The last piece is stay committed to long-term follow-up by monitoring people's behavior online. Actions speak louder than words. If I tell you I'm not ready to buy a house until January, and then all of a sudden 2 Fridays from now, I open an email that I haven't opened in 119 days. And I open that email, I look at 17 homes, I favorite 4 of them, and I share 2 of them. Dude, I didn't tell you with my words I'm ready to buy, but my actions are telling you it's time to call me. So yeah, your task was set for December. You need to call me now. And so monitoring behavior online is also the long-term thing. 2 billion searches, 4.5 million sales. It's a long game.
Yeah, I love how you describe, like, you know, just setting that expectation, not asking for permission, but just like, if it's just as a normal course of business, like, this is what you want, you are seeking for my help, I am your expert, this is how we get across the finish line. And a little while ago in the call, you talked about like it being weird for the person. You know, that's very true, right? Because we are doing this day in and day out. This is what we do. This is our business. You know, we lay out what that trajectory is for the consumer. The consumer doesn't know better. You know, how many people purchase dozens of homes over the course of their lifetime? Not very many. More than likely, the people we are interacting with is either first-time home buyers. Maybe if it's not that, it's the first time that they're selling and buying simultaneously. You know, yes, we can get, you know, to that 3rd phase or 4th phase, but more than likely the odds are kind of those first 2 types of avatars. So we are very well in position to create what those expectations are. So one of the key expectations are having that initial consultation. If it is on the buyer side, it's important to do so. You just do it. And when you go and approach that consult, I always like to think about it as 4 things that I'm looking to accomplish on that mission. You know, the first thing and the first pillar is the obvious introductions, right? You are meeting with the consumer. You're going to have your introductions. What are you looking to extract during that introduction is understanding their goals, understanding their motivations for why they are making this decision inside of their lives. You know, at a very macro level, like just understanding their mindset, letting them play their cards so that way we understand how to strike. The second thing is what Isaac just mentioned, is delivering our value prop, our process, our workflows. Like, why do we have the competitive advantage relative to maybe other agents in the industry? And my strategy has always been to deliver that message very passively, like dropping the seeds, like not necessarily saying like, hey, I'm the better agent because I do this, but just showing the overabundance of skill set that, you know, we can carry or I can carry to help them facilitate that. So that's the second pillar. Third pillar is the very micro level, like what is it that they're looking for? This is now the traditional, like what is their search criteria? Like what type of homes are they thinking about, and pulling that out of the conversation. And then lastly, finding a moment to be able to drive some banter, relatability. You know, if I can extract from them like things that they love, their passions, introducing it as well, and that becomes that relatability piece. But at the conclusion of those 4 pillars, you will create that bulletproof formula to understand what their intentions are, what their motivations are, what is it that they're desiring to do. You are positioning yourself as the expert and as the agent, and you are building that relatability and ultimately selling yourself as the expert.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to kind of highlight before we close out is, I think that it's such an important concept what you said when you're talking about like how often has this person done that, done real estate transactions. And to your point, it's either gonna be the first time that they purchased a home, 2, the first time that they've either sold the house and they're doing the trade up, or maybe the first time that they've already done that and now they're purchasing a secondary home. Or, like they're moving from one state to the other. Like it's a lot of firsts, right? So you are always going to be in a heavy consultation role. And I will tell you, even with our investors that we work with who are like flippers, like they get so used to their process and you solving stuff, they don't even really remember what the process is. They just trust you to fulfill it. So again, you are going to be the most knowledgeable person in the transaction on that side. Certain personality types may want to be in control and mimic that they have a better understanding than you, but the reality is they're using you because you're the expert. And so I think that that's just such a heavy reality for us to keep at the forefront when driving value, which is that consultation role, knowing that this likely is their first time. And even if they have multiple experiences doing it before, you probably sell more houses in a month than they do their entire life. You know what I mean? So it's like they don't really know that process. As strategies change, as things in the market change, you have to really be there to consult. Yeah. And that is the entrance of building the trust and converting at the high level. Yeah. And, the consultation before you get to the home is the shiny object, right? I don't want to put too many obstacles in front of that, because then they're just going to go to someone who will do it less. But it's very logical for us to say, hey, yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and do that. We're going to be there at 4:00. Let's just meet, 20, 30 minutes beforehand so I can kind of walk you through the process so I can get a full understanding of exactly what you're for. And I want to kind of meet you in person. 2, if you got some additional time, I will take a look at, the surrounding properties that may look, and even if it's just us scratching an itch of curiosity, we'll get an understanding of how this house is positioned in that local market. So I'll meet you there at some, like that is the entrance points for you to build a long-term relationship with someone who's going to work. And you still will lose people who will decide to go with someone else. But at the end of the day, you're giving yourself the best opportunity to have the best chance of continuing to work with someone. And that, my friend, is how you increase your conversion. Yeah. It's just the little steps. It's not these big things. We don't have to overthink it. So appreciate you, Isaac, for coming on today and making some time with us and pouring back into our community as always. Luis, thank you for your contributions always and co-hosting. I hope you guys have a blessed and prosperous weekend. We'll see you for Motivational Monday, where Robert Palmer, founder and CEO, will be joining us here from LPT headquarters. Have a blessed weekend.